Hi, I'm David Gross with Condi Systems, back with you to share a little bit of my tips and tricks for sublimation success. One of the most common calls I get is my colors are no longer right. And of course they're asking me to help them solve the problem and troubleshoot the issue. And I just wanted to take a video through a few of the steps that I go through in helping people troubleshoot what they're calling color management or color issues. The first thing I'm going to ask you, if you call me, is how's your nozzle check? And when I used to say that when I was on the phone and my kids were with me, they thought that was really funny because they didn't know what a nozzle check was. And so I remember when they were very young looking at each other saying, nozzle check, have you done your nozzle check? And because literally that was always the first thing. So with your printer, I want you to do a nozzle check. And I want you to look at it and I want you to count the number of colors. With some of the fancy Epson printers, they have 8 colors. And so if you take a quick glance at the nozzle check, you'll think, well, everything looks good, it's there. I want you to go one step further and I want you to count the number of colors. Verify that the correct number of colors are there. And number 2, I want you to actually sublimate the nozzle check. And with some of the fancier Epson printers, there's light colors, and then there's even a light black in the 4800, 4880 printers. And occasionally things can go wrong in putting ink in a cartridge, and so what I want you to do is I want you to sublimate the nozzle check for 2 reasons. Number 1, verify all the colors sublimate. And then number 2 is verify the colors are in the correct order. And so on a 4800, 4880, if you turn the nozzle check upside down and start that way, it'll be black, cyan, magenta, yellow, light black, light cyan, light magenta, and light black. And we want to verify that those colors are indeed in the correct order. Next, I'm going to ask you, are you printing on the right side of the paper? Are you using the correct paper? It's so important, of course, to print on the right side of the paper. And if your transfers come out fuzzy and dull, maybe a good indication you're printing on the wrong side of the paper. Most of the papers, the bright white side is the side we want to print on, and for many of the printers like the Epson 4000 series, the Ricos, all those papers in the tray go with the print side face down, the bright white side. Now with the Ricos, if you're using the bypass trays, you'll put it with the bright white side face up. Next, we're going to turn our attention to the computer. And at the computer, essentially, we want to be doing 3 things correctly. Number 1 is we want to be printing with our color profile. So if you're using an ICC profile, make sure you're choosing it. If you're using the power driver, you're not going to be using a color profile. But most of the time, most of our clients, whether they're PC or Mac, you're going to be using our ICC profile. And you just need to make sure that you've chosen it in whatever program you're using. Next is we want to make sure we're using the correct driver settings. In the Rico or Epson, there'll be correct settings for the media type, the quality, and then the color mode. Most of the time in the color mode, we want to have it set for no color adjustment or no color profile, and that means that your application is doing the driving. Okay? And then last, we want to make sure we flip it. So we want to make sure we do all those 3 things. Now I have here in my hand, we'll call it a stake in the ground, and that is we want to print something like the default RGB chart, or say a photograph, and this is my daughter, and we want to print this when we think our system's working correctly, okay? And that way, if we're not sure if our system is malfunctioning, we could print this again and compare the results. And that way, we know when our system was working what it's supposed to look like. And of course, if you watch my videos, you know I'm a big fan of printing color charts so that we can pick colors. And I've got videos out there for small color charts and large color charts. Really will take a lot of time out and frustration out of your ability, your needs to pick colors at the computer. Instead, we want to pick colors at the chart. Okay. Now last we have, the last element is going to be the heat press. So our 3 elements are the printer, the computer, and the heat press. And as you know, heat presses can change over time. They can lose temperature regulation, and so you want to do a little work to make sure your heat press isn't the culprit of the problem. And generally that means measuring the platen temperature. You can measure it with a heat gun, you can measure it with like a metal candy thermometer to see. Usually you're going to pick up pretty fast if you have a heat press issue based on all sorts of weird effects when you press it. It might look very foggy or whatever. And so I hope this video has been helpful with putting you through a little bit of the methodology for determining where your problem is coming from. But the bottom line is this. Print something that you can put as your stake in the ground to know how your system is working. And then if you do encounter problems, first look at what's changed. You know, has somebody come and reinstalled Corel, using a new version or whatever that requires some setup. So if you're paying attention to your system, you're probably going to spot a change. If there hasn't been any change, then go through the methodology I've suggested, and you should be able to identify the problem. The last thing to be concerned about is if you're not using your printer a lot, your inks could age. And so pay attention to the use-by date on the cartridges, because over time the signs of a cartridge that's going past its life will be the inks will be weakening. They'll weaken. Like the magenta won't quite be as strong, and that means that your color shifts. So it won't exactly appear as magenta. It might appear like the other colors are overpowering. And so we can help you with those kinds of issues. But the last thing to be concerned about is to check your ink dates to see where you are with your use-by dates. Well, this has been David Gross with Conde Systems. I welcome your comments, your emails. My email address is dgross@conde.com. Till we meet again, thank you.